Hello, it's August 2022, and the topic of this video is going to be about surviving, but not like Survivor Man or surviving the wilderness or plane crash or anything like that. It's going to be about surviving. But I want to start off by talking about a conversation that I recently had with a professional. And I had told this professional that I had post-traumatic stress from the events of May 4th, 2013. And it got worse over the years dealing with the injustice in Calgary, Alberta. And the first thing this person asked was there a so-called professional diagnosis of post-traumatic stress? And I said, no, I don't adhere to that belief system. And they pretty much dismissed my having post-traumatic stress. I just want to highlight something that I've highlighted over many years recently. How it doesn't matter if someone is educated or what profession or status they have in life or what profession they are. There seems to be a part of the population that cannot see the truth, the facts. For example, with the liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology. As if these people have some ability to be able to diagnose someone with something. Despite, for example, the Rosenhan experiment, and it's not the first experiment of its kind, nor was it the last. And I have shared before that I did participate in a similar type of experiment, not to the same degree. And that was recorded and everything else, and I did share that at some point years and years and years ago. So these people cannot diagnose anything. Now I do have doctors, real doctors, saying yes, I have post-traumatic stress. And was it May 5th or yeah, it was May 5th, 2013. I did have someone in that profession say that yes, you have post-traumatic stress, but I never followed up with it or anything else because I didn't adhere to it. I was just speaking with them and I was in absolute shock. Like, I had all the symptoms, and they even acknowledged that I was recognizing the symptoms and everything that I was going through, because I was telling them this is what's happening and everything else and describing it. And just because someone doesn't have an official signature to, for example, in my case, having post-traumatic stress, doesn't mean that they don't have it. I need reading glasses, but I don't have a prescription for them. I haven't gone to an eye doctor. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about eye doctors. I'm just saying I need reading glasses, but I just buy the ones off the shelf. But just because I don't have a prescription or having my eyes looked into doesn't mean I don't need reading glasses. So that's the parallel there. Now, how does this tie in with surviving? Well, dealing with post-traumatic stress or any kind of traumatic issue or event in someone's life, you're surviving it afterwards, especially when there's been no proper resolution to that event. For example, in my case, justice. I don't ever expect to see justice. I've never seen justice for all the years that I was dealing with Calgary, Alberta. I don't expect anything to change. It's unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that these types of people who impose injustice and destroy people's life, ultimately destroying society overall, continue to do what they do. So surviving a traumatic event is a form of survival. And a lot of people who, for example, end up homeless are dealing with that traumatic event in their life. And as I've said in recent videos, there's a lot of homeless people, and people assume, oh, they're homeless because drugs got them there, or alcohol or something, where in fact a lot of times most of the time people become homeless and end up resorting to drugs, alcohol, and everything else because they need a way to cope. Now, I'm not advocating, obviously I'm not advocating to do drugs or alcohol or anything else to cope, but simply highlighting that to make a point. Now, people, when they think of surviving, they think of Survivor Man or surviving on a deserted island shipwreck or plane crash or something, and you're fighting the elements and everything else, but there's many kinds of surviving, psychological surviving, and you're having to deal with it 24/7, which is hard. But for example, homeless people are surviving. They're doing the very same types of things that, for example, Survivor Man would be doing, trying to scavenge for something, trying to find a place to sleep, make a shelter. The environment's different when they're in a city, but they're still doing all the same things that someone in a plane crash in the mountainside is doing. They're surviving every day. Now, surviving a plane crash or being a shipwreck or something like that is very dramatic, and it's very ooh-ah, and they're much more rare than, say, for example, homeless people. And that's part of the reason why people just simply don't look at homeless people as trying to survive. And there comes a point in that living like that where you can't turn back because you've been so accustomed to it. And plus there's the whole psychological element of not feeling worthy or whatever it is. So there's a lot going on, but these people are surviving. And over the years, and even now, I'm surviving. I'm going through all the same types of steps that anyone else in the survival mode is doing. And ultimately, it all focuses around basic needs. And that's survival. So I just wanted to give you something to think about when you look around. And you don't even have to be homeless. You don't even need to have, for example, post-traumatic stress or some sort of psychological trauma or something to be surviving. There's people surviving all the time. And even as a descriptive of the normal world, people are surviving all the time. They're going to work, trying to pay their bills, food, shelter, raise kids, the whole 9 yards. And that is surviving, but that's more as another descriptive first world surviving, because you're not having to deal with basic needs because that's already there, but you're still trying to maintain that. Maintaining all that is a form of survival with a lot of perks and luxuries. So when you look around, as I was saying, and you see someone homeless, they're in survival mode. They're in the same physical and perhaps even psychological state of mind as someone surviving a plane crash or a shipwreck or something. People don't think about that, and because it's so common, nobody cares. And I've talked extensively how people fall through the cracks of the system, and usually there was an event, for example, of injustice that pushed them towards that direction, and then they just kept slipping and sliding while trying to hang on to, as a descriptive, normalcy in life. And then once it totally slips out of their fingers, they're accustomed to that type of lifestyle. We see the same type of thing when people become institutionalized, whether it be in a real hospital setting or in the liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology hospital setting. And we also see this greatly with the prison systems, how people become institutionalized and they become so accustomed to it that that's all they know, and they want to go back. And it becomes some sort of security for them. It's a shame. The prison system ultimately was as a form of punishment and rehabilitation, but for people who actually did things, committed a crime or something, and people who were, for example, incarcerated for example, lifetime. That was to isolate them from the rest of society because they were a danger to society. But what we see is, and I have a great example in my story, how this is being misused by the courts, by the police, and by governing bodies, totally abusing their authority. And there's no recourse. you're turning to the people who are imposing the injustice for justice, and you'll never find it. And these people don't care, because these people's lives just continue on. And every so often they'll throw a little token person and say, yeah, see, we got one bad one. But when you look at over the big picture overall, it's not going to change, unfortunately. It's survival. People survive all the time, different degrees, different environments, physical and mental. The mental one is the hardest. And now that I have post-traumatic stress from the May 4th, 2013 event that was imposed on to me by the two former officers, I understand from that first-hand perspective now what it's like. You can't shake it. And there's plenty of good documentaries, like, for example, The Marketing of Madness. The Marketing of Madness has been around for over a decade anyway. And they talk about the so-called medications, the drugs, pharmaceuticals, and how it destroys people's lives. Because they're trying to say, well, there's a chemical imbalance. It's interesting to see how many people in this world, as an arbitrary number, say at least 51% of the people, buy into all the myths, lies, falsehoods, false narratives, and there's no changing them. You're not going to sway them even a little bit. And there's other people who see more, but still don't see everything. And there's people who even see more than that, but don't see everything, and the scale goes up. Anyway, I just really wanted to give you some things to think about. Ultimately, survive. Life is about survival. The key is to survive as long as you can without compromising yourself. And if life is not about survival, then you have to ask yourself if that's true. If it's not, then why is the world the way it is, and why are we here? To survive. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.